ask questions. The questions I faced, as I went through my journey. So I started my career in the UN as a male officer and also as a researcher. But soon I realized that communities have a critical role in development, and somehow their role has got diminished. So as I was thinking about this, the question for me was, who is the community? So I throw this question back to you. Who do you think is the community? You're welcome to share in the chat. Yeah, think about it. If you're talking about engaging communities, who would they be for you? We can invite 1 or 2 people to speak quickly, or you can leave your answers in the chat. Okay, Sandamali, stakeholders of our project. Yeah, if you could break that down. Civil society. Common people living in a particular society. Would you please elaborate? So we are getting answers, stakeholders, people belonging to a certain group. So who would be that certain group? Neighborhood. So people living in a neighborhood in a geographical area could be a community. Yes. Anyone else? You can put on your mic and speak. Target group. People for whom we work.
It's making it interactive.
Project team. Anyone else? Project beneficiaries. Who are they? Anupa? Donor. Good point there. So as subjects, but it seems extractive. So using the term itself, the subjects. Okay, one more. Okay, community, as you all said, could be people living in a geographical area or people whom we are trying to engage and who have a role in the project. But communities are heterogeneous, right? Yeah. So, so who in the community? Have you ever thought if you're working with a community, who in the community? Is it the most vocal ones? Oh, they're so easy to engage. Yeah, anyone? Anyone to challenge me? Because I am here to learn from you. Okay, so as I started working and yes, we do have, yes. So minorities, disabled women, children, elders. Yes, is not necessarily, absolutely. Yeah, so is not, yeah. So we are all bringing in these power issues. So when I also started working, I realized that even if we were trying to engage and the more powerful, the more vocal came forward and we were able to engage. But the question was whose voice, who was deciding? And I soon realized that it was not only the power between us, the outsiders, and those communities, but also the power that existed in the communities. the least vocal, who did not have decision-making power, and who were passive. So let's delve a little bit deeper. Okay, so while we are discussing who these the members in the communities were, and there's a very important point which someone has made, that communities necessarily are not vocal. Okay, but we are trying to engage them. So as you're all young people, we are going to use Mentimeter to go to the next question. Okay, are you ready? Can I hear some voices, please? Yes? Yes, okay, nice. So, here is this question for you. Think about it and go to Mentimeter. There's a code. My colleague Rajasi has left the link in the chat box. So the question for you to think about it, yes. Question is, how would you describe inauthentic community engagement in evaluation? What is not authentic when we engage communities in evaluation? Is my question clear? See, I cannot see you. Either I need to hear, or if you could raise your hand and say yes.
Should it be one word, or can we write like a sentence?
Yes, you can. Please, you can write.
Okay.
It's not a poll. It is for us to reflect, you know, and no one has all the answers. So we are co-creating answers together.
Thank you.
So what is not authentic engagement? If anyone is having a problem in accessing Mentimeter, do let us know. And Rajasi, please, would you share your screen so that we can see all the answers? So I was also going through this, you know, this journey. What are the questions I'm asking? Excellent. Can everyone see the screen? So it was non-inclusive repeat participants, superficial, top-down approach, coercion, duplication. Please, would someone explain in the chat what they mean by duplication and repeat participants in terms of participation? Surface level, nice, interesting. Yeah. Okay, this is. Okay, so thank you everyone for reflecting with us. Rajasi, may I go back to my share screen? Yeah, thank you. So there is this cartoon by Chris Lice, and he says that we send a survey once a year to program participants or stakeholders, and we consider that as participation. Yeah. So similarly, a lot of conversation has been happening. What is not participation? And I started delving deeper into this idea of participation. And I came across a lot of models of participation, like Einstein's, Robert Hart. In evaluation, there is Bradley Cousins, and so on. And and what they were saying is that participation is a spectrum, and the from the lowest ladder, as you have very well said in your answers, it's even like it's at, sometimes it's at surface level, it's superficial, and up as the ladder, as we go up the ladder, we are stepping back, that is the outsiders, and the community is taking on. But we being mindful that who in the community has the power, who should be involved, why and how. I came across a very simple, we had once done in a workshop, and if you see, this is the hand. So it gives very simply from informs to, if you look at thumb, you go to own. So informing people, consulting, informing is giving information, consulting them, come, we are developing a program, what do you think? Participate, come join our program and implement together. And partners, we collectively take decisions, but ownership, we own it. Yeah. So slowly I started understanding these levels of engagement. So now that you have some kind of understanding of some theory, how would you define community ownership in evaluation? Think about it. Think about a project where you were involved as evaluators, or where your project was evaluated. And community could also be a group of people in the organization. So anyone which has a shared interest or is geographically, in a particular unit. So how would you define community ownership in evaluation? Think of different steps in evaluation, different processes, different methodologies. So would you like to share that in the chat? And would someone like to take the mic? It'd be very nice to hear your voice. And we are all learning. So there's no right or wrong here.
Ritu, can I go?
Yes, of course.
Yeah. So for me, when I hear that community involvement in community for evaluation, it's like they also take part in evaluation, not just giving answers or the responses for what we ask, but they do evaluation, they do involve with evaluation, whether it's like evaluation design or the data collection process, even the analysis. So take part in evaluation itself. For me, that's what like part the involvement of community for evaluation.
So what do you mean? So what you're actually saying is that every step, it is the
either every step or part of it. Actually depend on how complexity of our evaluation would be, whether it's every step or as much as possible.
Yeah. Okay, very nice. So could we just unpack they participate in like, for example, design? What do you mean by that? Or anyone else? Yeah. Yes, Sandali, quickly.
Yeah,
and then we have,
sorry.
Yeah. Okay. There are some responses also in the chat. They frame the problem and choose the pathway towards understanding. Every step. Okay, so that now we are all clear that at every step they are involved. Yes, Sandamali.
Yeah, sorry for the disturbance. So I like when it's come to design, so if we can involve them on the methodology of our evaluation, who are the, like, for an example, when we are designing, what would be the sample we can take, who are the best or the right groups that we need to discuss when we do the evaluation. So likewise, if we can get inputs from them, would be ideal in order to reach right people at right time. Likewise.
Yeah. And also like thinking who decides, who takes the final decision, and involving them in design. Like we were doing participatory evaluation of a girls program, and where we had not really thought of asking the boys. And the girls said, please ask the boys, because many of our problems are because we're not able to even have conversation with boys in our school. So absolutely, Sandhamali. Anyone else who thinks differently or would like to add, so that we all learn and co-create today? Yes? Anyone? Yeah. Dr. Rakshinda Amreen? Okay, so last question before I hand it over to Dr. Malika is, if this is our definition that the communities are involved at every stage, what would be our role of an evaluation professional? What would we be doing? Do we have a role? Come on team, let's think. Think of maybe when you were in college, and maybe it was not an evaluation, but you were part of some program as a student or in your office. So where you felt it was participatory, what were the people around you? What were they doing that you felt that it was participatory? Yeah, okay. YEE-SA has said, empowering the communities with support and resources for them to have ownership of their project. Yeah. And what do we do when we are empowering them, YEE-SA?
I would just say just providing the necessary resources or different methods of supporting them in the ways that they see fit. So for example, like asking questions and seeing what exactly are the needs and how they want us as evaluators to be able to help them in their projects.
Yeah, so ask a lot of questions and listen to them.
Yes.
Yeah, so asking questions, listening to them, and providing them support. Yeah, and walking along. So facilitating the process.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. So bringing in our evaluation skills, but facilitation skills. And if anyone wants to read, Tessie Katsambas has actually written a very good article on facilitation. So check that out. I'll leave it in the chat box later. One last thing I want to share is, so as I started, as I started in my journey, and I realized what was the hindrance to my journey, and the hindrance to my journey was that I did not believe that communities could do things for themselves. I was arrogant. I thought I had all the answers as a public health researcher. And what really helped me was stepping back is when slowly when I started listening, deeply listening to people, I realized that they had already, for centuries, the communities had survived. They did not need me, but what they needed is a facilitator. And what I needed was the belief that people can do things for themselves. So, and what helped me were an umbrella of strength-based approaches, like appreciative inquiry, SALT, positive deviance, which helped me realize that people can do things for themselves. And I just have to ignite the power that existed between the people. So I just had to hold this space. So you might like to read that and keep thinking on how we have all thought of what participation and ownership is. And now I hand it over to Dr. Malika.
Thank you, Ritu. I think thank you very much for that conceptual background. Until Rajasi is ready with my slides, I may continue with the moderator's understanding that I can go straight into it.
Yeah.
Ganapati ji, is it okay?
Yeah, please go ahead. And before that, let me little bit give your introduction to the participants now, because that time I did not give your specific introduction. And so the friends, we have now Dr. Malika Rukmini Samaradayake. She is very well known in participatory evaluation. And she was before, she was the founder, the president of Community of Evaluators South Asia. And also she was the founder member for the SLEVA, the Sri Lankan Evaluation Association. And also she has taken part in the UN agencies to guide them in some accountability issues. So with this, and we'll hear from her rich experience in participation and participatory approaches, methods, and evaluation. Now, Dr. Malika.
Yes, thank you very much for that introduction. Rajasi, can I have my slides on the screen? I will concentrate more on what are the tools that we have at our disposal for making it possible for the community views to be heard. Because I remember Ritu ended up saying, I learned that what I knew was far less than what the community knew about themselves, about their health and all that. So until get my slides, Rajasi?
I have presented them. Can you see them?
No, I can't. It's not coming on my screen.
It is there. Malika ji, it is there. We are seeing your slide, but why you are not seeing? Rajeshi, is there something you can help? Rajeshi?
Ma'am, what are you able to see on the screen then, if not the slides?
Now it is the slide. All
Okay,
this time
okay.
it was something else.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, so the next slide, please. So I'm trying to introduce tools of participatory methodology. Now that Ritu has captured the conceptual background to it and why we consider people's views are more important than ours as experts going into the field, she has laid that foundation for me. If that is so, what kind of tools can be used to work with the people in the field? So participatory rural appraisal is therefore a set of approaches and methods and behaviors. It enables people to express and analyze the realities of their conditions. It helps to plan the activities to be undertaken and and to monitor and evaluate the results with community participation. It emphasizes processes which empower local people. So it's not just an exercise, but it has to emphasize the process part of it. Otherwise, people will not come in with their views and ideas. The key elements of a PRA are the methods used and the behavior and attitudes of those who facilitate the process. I'm taking this from Professor Robert Chambers. He always emphasized people will react depending on the behavior and attitudes of the facilitator itself, and also the kind of methods and tools that we use with the community. Next, please. Rajasi? Yes. So that means PRA or Participatory Rural Appraisal, or now known as even PLA, that is Participatory Learning and Action, because there was a time historically when people started criticizing, why do you say PRA? Is it only applicable to rural conditions? Can't we use it in urban situations? So therefore, we had long years of discussion and finally came up with the word PLA. All right, it is Participatory Learning and Action. That is how we term it today. It doesn't mean that PRA part of the conceptual background is lost. We are basing that as the foundation and going further into planning. Therefore, it employs a range of methods to enable people to express and share information. It stimulates discussion and analysis. Such methods are visually based and involve the community members and build on their creative ability. That is the basic understanding of the participatory methodology. We build on the creative ability of the people themselves. In using such methodology, the skills of facilitation therefore becomes very, very crucial. And I know Dr. Chambers has already emphasized in most of his writings, the strength of facilitation is what PRA turns out to be. Next, please. Okay, so because I'm asked to come up with tools and techniques in participatory evaluation, I don't think I can do justice to these methods and tools in this short period of time. And I know Dr. Chambers will agree, we need at least 2 weeks of intensive training and practice in the field to understand all these different tools that we can use for making the community's voice heard. But I have to list out these so that you can have some idea, so that after these sessions, you may be able to do reading up, or we enter into a more in-depth training of participatory methods. Now, when you say participatory methods, it doesn't mean that secondary data analysis is forgotten or put aside. We arrive with the analysis of already data that is available. We can also look at historical profiles, oral histories and stories. People start talking about the history of their lives in the community. We can also use mini surveys, small household surveys. We can use semi-structured interviews. We can use key informant interviews. I'm going to touch on some of these things in detail. Key informant interviews will be you recognize people who are knowledgeable about the people, the community, and working with them, and we can conduct interviews one-to-one and interviews one-to-one so that we deepen the findings of our surveys. So they are the key informant interviews. It can be government officers, it can be the village headman, it can be those who are implementing the programs. So we have to pick and choose the actors who are active in that field. We can also have focus group discussions. So focus group discussions will be not one-to-one interviews, but a group of people gathered together and we carry on a group discussion. And we have to, even that has to be done in a participatory manner so that the facilitator is only facilitating the discussions. He is not going to dictate to them, this is what participatory evaluation means or participatory monitoring means. So participatory mapping or neighborhood mapping is also a very powerful tool and a very good starting point to interact with the community. If you just ask them, in this case, I'd like to share a little bit of my own experience. I was training some university lecturers on participatory methods. In the training, I told them the best way to do a mapping exercise is going to the field, you go to the compound, and you can let people start with their own understanding of what their neighborhood looks like. Then these people said, no, we can do it ourselves. We don't have to go to the compound. We can do it here in the classroom itself. I said, all right, what do you need to do that? They said, papers and pens. I brought them papers and pens, and they started writing. After a little while, somebody said, I need another paper, please. So I gave another paper. Then we waited for a few minutes, and another one raises the hand. Malika, can I also have some papers more? This why I asked why I gave you a paper earlier. No, that is not enough. So I need to have another one. So I gave that also. Finally, nobody could map out their neighborhood. I only said, from the time you set out from your home to come to this lecture center, what is it that you are passing through? Can you just indicate through a map? That they couldn't do. And these are lecturers from a recognized university who are trying to learn participatory methods. So I said, this is a very good starting point. And then I said, very soon we are going to practice it in the field, and you see the difference. How competent the community is in showing what they see in their own neighborhood, instead of our trying to map it out for them. And using that, we can also do a transect walk to physically examine what we learn from the people are actually happening in the field. And that is called a transect walk, to looking at vegetation, climatic conditions, the types of vegetation, and also the types of farming activities, and what kind of activities people are engaged in other than that, like livestock rearing. And so something, in my experience, something that we didn't discuss in the session got revealed during our transect walk, and that was tobacco cultivation. People were reluctant to talk about tobacco cultivation because they thought that is an unhealthy practice. So they were hiding it. But through our walk, they didn't decide the way we are walking. We decided how to walk towards that. And we saw it on the way. And then, of course, they had to say, we thought we will be ashamed to say that we are doing tobacco cultivation as a means of living. So like that, you can enter into a discussion while doing the transect walk across the village. Then another tool is matrix ranking and scoring. I will go into a little bit of detail later, and therefore I move on. Pairwise ranking is yet another kind of matrix ranking, and we are going to see a few diagrams on that as well. Next, please, Rajyasree. Okay. Another type of tool is seasonal calendars. That is how certain activities are spread over the period of time. There again, I like to share a little bit of field experience. With the same lecturer group, I was trying to get a seasonal calendar done in the village with the villagers. And then the people started talking, okay, they call it, for April, they use the word Bak in Sinhala. Bak, Vesak, Poson, Asala. Like that, they brought some coconut shells and started putting them on the ground, saying that these are the months. Then these people couldn't, our learned people could not stand it. They said, no, not like that. You start with January, February, March. Now I had to intervene. I said, please allow them to do it that they are comfortable with. Don't try to explain to them how to do it. Let them do it, and then we can have a discussion. So we could carry on. And they did a splendid example. They started with their cultivation season and ended up with the Maha season is the main cultivation season, and then towards the Yala season, which is the considerably lesser cultivation season due to less rainfall. They even connected with the rainfall line graph later on. So daily routine chart is another activity or another tool that we can use to understand what is the difference between the activities that are done by the men and women. Usually everything is taken for granted. When the men did their profile and the women did their profile and tried to compare, we found that the women are the people who get up early in the morning and they start doing all these cooking and preparing meals for the men to go to the field, packing up things, and then getting the children ready to school, all that. And then when you go to the rest of the period, you found that at the end, who goes to sleep last? It's again the women. It's only after seeing this in the field graphically that the men started saying, aha, yes, we have to reckon this. So you couldn't have lectured for hours and hours trying to convince the men about the understanding of the difficulties that the women are going through. So those are daily routine charts, and that can be accompanied by livelihood profiles as well. I can't, with this little space of time, go and elaborate all these. I'm just listing and taking a few for elaboration. So we have timelines and trend lines, which are also spread over during the months of the year. You can have flow charts, diagrams, graphs, and charts. Flow charts and diagrams and graphs and charts. And flow charts, of course, will be connecting one to another. You start it at some point. Let's say we are starting at poverty, and what is the cause of poverty? And what is the result of poverty? Like that, you can bring out the linkages using a flow chart system. I will show an example later. Then self-evaluation is yet another way of trying to see. It's a tool in participatory method so that you evaluate yourself. You are not getting on your paper to say what you are doing. You are doing it yourself, and you are reflecting yourself on the activities that you are doing. We can also have another tool called Venn Diagramming. And Venn Diagramming is also a diagrammatic representation. I will show you some examples later in the discussion. So we have another one called Wealth and Wellbeing Ranking. This is a very, very important tool that we can use for even to start a discussion with the community. You can simply start brainstorming with them. What do you think is wealth and well-being? So they come up with their ideas as they think best. For them, wealth is not the type of wealth that we as facilitators think. How different it is can only be realized when you do a practical exercise with them. Then problem tree analysis is yet another tool that we can use, and that is looking at the causal factors and also the result of a particular problematic situation. Then we use participatory planning also. Having done the analysis through these various other techniques, we go on to planning, and that also can be done in a participatory manner. Can we move, Radhisi? Next, please. Okay. So I'm taking one by one, selecting some of those for deeper discussion, some of the tools. So participatory mapping and neighborhood mapping is one of the key tools that we can start doing with the community in order to start a conversation. So types of mapping include physical mapping, demographic mapping, land use mapping, historical mapping, and even body mapping. Let's see what these things mean. Physical mapping, where we show location of important resources, such as physical features, water resources, vegetation, and forest cover, etc. In demographic mapping, we use it to indicate who lives where are the houses, where are the marketplaces. So features such as settlements, service stations, educational facilities, marketplaces, and other service stations. Once you mark them on a map, you can see the distances that they have to walk to access these services. So therefore, that also becomes a very important type of discussion tool. Then we use land use mapping. which can be used to understand how the available land is utilized by the community. Example, for farming, for livestock rearing, like that. Then we also use historical mapping, which can be used to understand the utilization of resources and changes over time. Sometimes the historical development of certain things cannot be seen by the time you just do exercise of mapping in the field as you go there. So historical mapping, you have to start by asking him, all right, this is what it is today. How was it 10 years back? If you take the older people into a group and ask them to map out what the village looked like 10 years back, they will be able to say, these roads are not there, it was only a footpath here, and we had none of these facilities. To go to the hospital, we had to carry the patient on a chair and walk all the way. So the discussion comes like that, and we see the changes. So that way, historical mapping is useful. So body mapping, can you just move the slide a bit? Adisi, can you move this slide a little bit? Up. Move up. I can't do it.
I can't actually.
No, you can push it up. I can't see the last part of the thing. Body mapping. All right. It helps to identify and discuss, very particularly on sexually transmitted diseases, for example. Now, this is a topic we can't go to the field and start straight off. No. And start straight off. Wait a minute. Don't change until I tell you. All right. So body mapping helps to identify and and discuss sexually transmitted diseases and importance of medical treatment. Now, can you please put that body mapping on the screen? There's a diagram. No, wait a minute. Now, these two pictures show how the physical mapping is done and how many people are engaged in it. So here, the second picture shows once they have completed, they are starting a discussion based on that map. Move on. Next, please. Yeah. This one, you can see how active the people are. Here, they are trying to decide the way to do the transect walk. This is the physical mapping of the area. Which way should we go to show them a good transaction of our community? They are discussing that, and they were the people who guided us in that discussion. Next, please. Next slide. Okay. Now, this is one of the maps, a very simple map that was drawn up by, you can see the writing and all, it's their own writing. It says our village. The topic is our village. These square ones are the paddy fields, and then you can see the coconut trees, the houses they are located. And the forest is the one that has these loops like thing. And then in the middle, in the dotted portion, is the tank, reservoir, which supplies water. And then the one at the end with the dashes, that is where they do chena cultivation. That is cultivation during the rainy season, off seasons as well. Next, please. This is what we call body mapping. Now, the problem here is you can't go to the field and start discussing with the people on sexual matters. It is very embarrassing sometimes. So what we do is using this kind of body mapping. We ask them to draw the picture of a man or a woman. It doesn't matter, whatever they like. If it is a men's group, they will draw a men's picture. And if it is a women's group, they will do a woman's picture. And then we start from head to foot discussing. Okay, if this is the head, what do you have there? We have the brain, we use it for talking, for thinking. Like that, you move down, you come to the heart, and then they will say, this is what they are saying. It helps pumping the blood to the system. Okay, come to the lungs. that breathing air. It is supporting breathing in air. Then liver, of course, they can't actually say what it does, but we can move down. The stomach, they are easily saying that is the place where the food gets processed. Then we come further down. You can see the kidneys, and kidneys, they say they can associate that with passing urine. And then, of course, we come to the womb. And about when discussing on the womb, women's, of course, this is where we bear our babies. And the men says, when they come to that point, that is where we fertilize to produce babies. Okay, and then you can come down. There is no difficulty in further going down. But if we want to talk about sexual transmission of diseases, this is the place where we stop. And then we go into deeper discussion. What can you associate with any illnesses that are associated? Right from the head, we are coming down now, so they are quite comfortable by the time they came to this place. And then, of course, they will say, they use their own local language and come out with certain diseases on sexual infections. So this is body mapping, which facilitates discussion. Next, please. Okay. What was the next picture? Next slide.
This is the next slide. By mistake, I put that other one.
Mistake, you put that. No, I thought it was out of place. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So now we move on to another method and go to it in detail. I spelled it out just by word, but now we are going into a little bit of details in discussing it, because this is a very, very useful tool for discussion. That's called matrix ranking and scoring. This is a tool that can be used to decide on choices by stimulating discussions among participants. It helps to make the decision-making process transparent, so that people are not doing things just because the experts come and tell them the best crop that you should cultivate is beans, or this kind of vegetable, or this kind of farming technique that they used. No, they list out, and then we ask them to see how they think about it, how they would score on this. So it facilitates discussion among participants, decide on preferences of community members. Example, to assess and study the preferences of farmers for a particular technology over others with respect to crops or animal husbandry. So when you want to introduce a new technology, we have to first understand what is it that they are using at the current time. And they are the best people to tell us this is how we do things. Okay, you can also use scoring for ranking. That is, you can use seeds or pebbles or any other counters to compare things such as the merits of different crop varieties or tree species, or how conditions have changed over time. You can use them to show the variation. Next slide, please. Rajesi, can I have the next slide? Yes. This is a picture. This is a drawn one, what is used. You can see there is a maximum scoring of 7 and a minimum scoring. In other words, you can score with 7 seeds, 1 to 7. Out of that, this is the criteria: good for food, good for case income, low labor requirement. So with less labor, you can cultivate. Then they are palatable, easy for cooking, harvesting. All these are not our criteria. These criteria are brainstormed from the people and lined up like that. And then we are asking, okay, what are the food varieties that you need to assess and see which is the best based on your criteria. Then they you physically put these things. It may be maize, or it can be sorghum, or it may be rice, it may be, let them say, and what they say, they even bring physically and put this on the ground. Beans, millet, and sesame, whatever that is comfortable or whatever they are using, they come up with. And then they start scoring out of 7. And you can see the scoring. This is not, there are people who can't write it even with illiterate people. I think Ritu was asking that question. If people are illiterate, it doesn't mean that they can't show what they want to show or say. Just by putting this number of seeds, they can say, this is how we are scoring this particular variety of crops. For example, maize, for food, they are given only 2 out of 7. And for cash, they are given 2 out of 7. For labor, 3 out of 7, because it requires a little bit more labor and also involves more people engaged in labor. About palatability, just 2. An easy cooking process, you can see 2. Harvesting, and they have given 6 for harvesting different categories. Right. So this way, the picture is very clear and they know what is best for them to select. Then you can see the total, and out of the total of 7, you can see the score that has come most. Counting seeds and things they can do. Even if they don't know to count and put seeds, Ritu, this is where we are using lumps of sand, lumps of seeds even, small lumps of pebbles, not counted. But from the size of that pebble or that lump of soil, they show their weightage. So that way they can score. You don't need to learn to write or read or even to count numbers. By these bundles, they can show how they validate or how they score. Yeah. Next, please. Okay. This is called options assessment. Again, it is using matrix ranking for selection of different varieties. For example, this is water. This is water sources they are trying to assess. It can be boreholes, it can be roof catchment, it can be natural springs, it can be rehabilitated dams, it can be getting shallow wells, water from shallow wells, it can be from new surface dams. Now this list, we have brainstormed them and written up there. See, so they are the people who are saying, you have only to ask the question, from where do you get your water? That's how they come up with this, the different ways of collecting water. And then of course, horizontally, we are writing, all right, how do you assess what is best for you to get your source of water? And then they start looking at productivity, stability, sustainability, equitability, and also the time to collect, cost, technical, and the priority. Okay, so when you put a question mark, that means they think that they don't know. That means they don't put anything there, it's vacant. And if it is a minus, it's a negative impact, small bundle of stones or something. Then 0 means no impact at all. Positive impact is just a plus, and very positive impact, you put 2 pluses. So it is just, these are not only figures like this, but it can be lumps and lumps of sand or pebbles. Next, please. Can you go back to the same slide? I forgot to mention that last bit. The same slide. Yes. At the bottom, you can say medium, long, high, low. That is regarding the scoring that you are going to give. It can be low or medium or high. Time-wise, it can be long, but cost-wise, it can be high. And feasibility-wise, low feasibility because it was taking a long time, that particular variety, and it is a high cost for production. So that way you rank it and then get the best. Invariably, it is a mix of medium and high. Next, please. Okay, now we are looking at this pairwise ranking. Pairwise ranking is also a similar matrix ranking, but we compare only two items at a time. Then it is very easy for people to, not like looking at a whole series of items, you are taking only 2 items at a time. It lends itself to compare 2 items at the same time, comparing one against the other, which is comparatively easy to assess. Used by individuals or teams to qualitatively prioritize a list of alternatives. Then it is a structured method for ranking a list of items which help to prioritize the problems and needs of the people. And it is a tool that can reveal the most important problems of the community. Okay, can you move on? These are the importance of, now this is an example of a pairwise ranking for income generation. Then you can see, you write the type of varieties, like here vegetables maybe, then you have the next one. Cardamom is a type of, you know, cardamom is a spice. And then this is ginger, then you have orange, you have maize, tomato, and nakima, and the other one is Amuso. This is a language that was used in the African countries mostly, because the place is a Tamil-speaking place. No, this is India as well. Then we can have the same things lined up in the same order, And then when you start comparing, if you compare vegetables with vegetables, you can't give a score. You can't decide which is best, because we're comparing only vegetables with vegetables. So that's why the minus sign there. It can't be compared. Then we compare vegetables with cardamom. They are selecting cardamom. And if you ask why are you selecting that? Because it brings us a bigger income. Then the next one, you're comparing vegetables with ginger. Which one would you select? Then they will say ginger, because that is also bringing in a better income. Then compare vegetables with orange. Then they say orange. So like that you go on marking, and every row, these are compared until you come back to comparing the last one with the last one there. That is until it becomes whether it is Amuso or, yes, Amliso, and the two of them don't compare, then they put a mark. We have actually to do this. If you do it only, you will understand. So tools of participatory methods, unless you practice in the field with the people, it is impossible to just theoretically understand. But theoretically, we must get the concepts clear, so that when we go to the field, we'll be able to facilitate the process with the people. We only facilitate. We only ask the right kind of question, and then we sit back, so they go into action. Next, please. Rajasi, next, please. Yes. Now, I will ask if you have any questions at the end of my presentation. Until then, I proceed with seasonal calendars, because another important tool that we use. It's a visual method of showing the distribution of seasonally varying phenomena, such as economic activities, food availability, workloads, family health, prices, wages, resources, production activities, problems, illnesses, migration, natural events, phenomena, etc. over time. And then useful for evaluation, as they can help analyze time-related changes in the data. We can say what time of the year it is raining and what time of the year we are doing the cultivations. In this case, I can also cite an example from the field. I was doing an exercise with refugees in a refugee camp, and trying to see, using this kind of method, what they were, but that is for a seasonal calendar. Then, okay, thank you. We have, what they said was, they were showing the time-related changes by way of saying when are the threats from the terrorists happen in the village. And they matched it up with the rainfall chart. And they say rainy season is the time there are more attacks because the police and army officers are not moving around that much. So this kind of information you cannot get by a survey or something like that. Here people start talking. Then by seeing these patterns, calendars offer a simple and effective option to understand links between different indicators, stimulate discussion, and plan for change, and monitor and evaluate. Next, please. Yes, here people, you can see how active they are when they are building up the seasonality chart. Next. You see, nobody is looking at us. Nobody is looking at the camera. They are all looking at what they are doing. This is another environment health analysis using seasonal calendars. You can see what are the recurrent ones and what are the seasonal ones. Next, please. At least you look at the, sorry. Okay, this is another one, another seasonal calendar. This is from Pakistan. And you can see the rainy and dry seasonal periods. You can see the sunshine they have put down and the rainy season, all using all kinds of symbols. They are so comfortable. When there is strong wind, see how they have put it. And when there is harvesting season, you can see they are doing this rubber tapping. It's a rubber area as well. Then hunger season, these are the months in which between the two seasons, between the two cultivation seasons, that they are experiencing shortage of food. So like that, it emanates a discussion very naturally. So that way seasonal calendars using these pictorial diagrams are helpful. Next, please. Okay, these are further examples of line graphs and bar charts. Next, please. I like to talk about flow charts also. Look at, I have taken poverty and looking at the causal factors and the effects of poverty. So these arrows that go, poverty is due to lack of jobs. You can see the arrows coming. Increased capital cost. People come up with these things. We don't have to say anything. We only say, as a result of poverty, what happens? And why is poverty? So then the causal factors come and the effects go above the arrows going up until they end up with food insecurity. Once again, they are showing that food insecurity causes malnutrition. Malnutrition causes less productive labor. And again, it relates to poverty. A very good discussion comes out of it. Next, please. It's a dynamic tool in PRA. These are just examples of the two round figures are pie charts, which are used by men and women to look at sources of income and sources of expenditure. And here also I like to say something experience from the field. They kept one portion empty. They didn't say anything. The others, of course, they mentioned like below. And then when the men were presenting, not the men, the women were presenting first. And when they saw that empty space, the men started giggling. Why? We know why they are keeping that empty. Just to indicate prostitution, and that is also an income earner for them. But they were shy to say it, they put that blank thing. But then they started blaming the men, who is the cause of it. And there was a very good practical discussion going on between males and females. Next, please. They are interesting also. Wealth and well-being ranking, a very important PRA tool. It determines the economic attributes of households in a village. It shows information in the relative wealth and well-being of households in a village, which helps to classify the households accordingly. It helps in determining social and economic status of households. Well-being is a complex notion with many different dimensions. The wealth shows the concern with values and assessments. Being suggests the importance of economic security and physical health, and subjective states of mind and social relationships. So to understand what this means to the community, we need to find out what is it, what do different kinds of people have and have not. What is it that they can do and cannot do? What is it that people can judge, assess, and feel about these things, and how do they make sense? Next. Next, please. Can you please move on to the next slide? Yeah, this is people in action doing the wealth ranking to 4 categories, 3 categories like that. I need 1 day to practice that at least. Then categorization is very poor, poor, average, rich. Next, please. Yeah, these are wealth and well-being ranking. I can share these slides with you so you can read it and understand. Next, please. Next slide. Here, they are categorizing the wealth rank using the wealth ranking exercise into 3 categories. Earlier one, it was 4 categories. You can even consider 5 categories. So move on. Then the next one I like to touch on is Venn diagramming or chapati diagramming. You can read through this. There are key players in decision making, can identify the key players in decision making by using this chapati diagram or Venn diagramming. They are called chapati because they are round circles. I showed you some of those when they were talking about their livelihood programs. Yes, move on. Here you see the people are very busy drawing it. The size of the circle shows the magnitude of importance. Then the distance shows how far they are to reach them. Next, please. Yes. Please put in them. If you have any pertinent questions, maybe we can spend about 2-3 minutes on that. I must say, I ideally recommend minimum 2 weeks training if you want to master PRA tools and techniques. Nothing less than that. Okay. If there are no questions, we can move on. Back to the moderator.
Thank you, Malika ji. It is okay. So you have given very good examples and also dealt it very nicely.
You want me to continue?
No, now it will be, your time is over now. So do you have it?
So you can move on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And now I invite Ritu again for the self-assessment as a tool and overall reflection on the use of participatory methods in monitoring and evaluation. Ritu, and before that, let me also say something about Ritu, because I have not said anything before about her. So I would like to little bit say about something about Ritu. Ritu is many things, and specifically she is now attached with the Global Fund for Children and also with the IESS team, and she is the core group member of the Evaluation Community of India, and also the Eval Gender Plus, and leads the community ownership in evaluation action group for Asia and Pacific Evaluation Association. As we saw before, that she not only give the lecture on participation and ownership, but she really believes that everyone has a strength and everyone has something to offer. So with this, I invite Ritu again for her second session.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Dr. Oja. I feel absolutely humbled to be here and to learn from everyone. So getting back to the journey I was taking, okay? And soon I realized in terms of evaluation that I could not use the term participation and participatory evaluation randomly. And some of the resources which helped me to think through, and I'm just putting here, and feel free to take a screenshot, that participatory is a spectrum, and Dr. Fetterman actually writes very well on this, like collaborative, participatory, and empowerment evaluation. So this is one kind of evaluation where we are trying to give ownership to the communities or the people or the stakeholders we feel should take ownership in evaluation, okay, for our program. But there is one very important thing which Dr. Malika spoke about, was something called self-evaluation. So are communities thinking evaluatively? Are they also evaluating themselves? Are they wearing masks? Are they getting vaccinated? Are they also changing their behavior? So that responsibility also rests with us, community citizens, you and me. Okay. So therefore, I started also realizing that it was not only like in evaluation, but communities need to be involved in each step in the project, from design of the project to implementation, measurement. Okay, so I want to give you a little taste of it, but I have a condition. The condition is that you all have to come on, unmute your mic and say, yes, we are ready, and then we'll do it. Okay, there's no pushing here. So are you all ready to taste? Yes. A little bit? Okay, only one voice.
Yes. We are ready.
Yes. Okay, then let's go. Let's go for a team. Okay, and I'm calling you team because I think you're my team. Okay, so this comes from Constellation SALT approach, which has been used in 60 plus countries. And what attracted me towards them was they spoke about ownership and moving beyond participation. So today, I am going to be a development professional or an evaluation professional, and you all are the community, okay? And I thought, because we've just had this pandemic, and still I think we're in this crisis. So would it be okay if we take on health, yes, as an issue to assess ourselves?
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I can't see you, so you all have to please. I feel nice if you all speak, okay? So now I'm just taking one step from here. So this entire cycle, it's quite like PLA, but it's strength-based, which I shared. So here each step builds ownership in the community, okay? So we are going to go through that step very quickly. And if you need more details, you can always contact me or Google. So let's think. We all want good health, right? Yes. And it's not that we are not doing anything about our health. So are there any good things, good practices you're doing in response to your health? Would anyone like to share that? Anyone? So that we can learn.
Exercises?
You exercise. Yeah, you regularly exercise, huh? So some of us, okay. I started doing one thing during the pandemic. You'll laugh, but I can share. I think it's okay. I started taking really good care of my teeth. So warm salted warm water or saline mouthwash every night, because I knew I could not go to the dentist. So this is one thing I was doing. Any other good thing anyone does for their health?
Diet control. Healthy diet.
You do that, Bilal?
Sometimes, obviously.
Okay. What do you do? Could you tell us? One example.
I use less salt in the food, and I go for some less masala, so that could not affect my health.
Okay. So we see that a group here has some things we are doing. Okay. So similarly, if we go in the community, communities are also taking some action. They are not just sitting, and we go with this belief that, oh, they do nothing, and we are going to tell them what to do. Okay. Next. Okay. So we have some strengths. Then what is our dream? That we are all healthy as a group. What would be happening, like say 5 years from now, and we say, okay, we are all very, very healthy. Anyone? Are people putting in chat? I'm not able to see. Eating more fruit. Sorry, I'm just missing this. Okay. So people have listed a lot. You see, there are so many strengths, but what is our dream? Quickly, team, as a group. No sign of non-communicable diseases, are you saying? Yeah, I assume. Yeah, yes. Very good point. So so those who have non-communicable diseases like diabetes and hypertension are more vulnerable, and these are the lifestyle diseases are what our current generation is facing. This is the major issue. Okay, so let's take that as our dream. So so NCDs we have overcome. Just trying to come NCDs. Yeah. Okay.
No more pandemics.
Okay, nice. So how does it feel to dream? Whose dream is it? Mine or yours?
It's mine basically.
Right.
But if
so
you
it
are
is
in
of our
pandemic,
group,
you are
right?
locked down.
Right. So what I'm saying is we go to the community and we say, we have a project. Can you join us? But here I'm asking, what is your dream? You see the difference? Yeah. And then we develop a common dream. Okay. Next is, what are the practices? What will we do to achieve the dream that we have overcome NCDs and there is no pandemic? Yeah, so because we are also worried about our future generation, isn't it? So very good point from the members here. So what are the things we would be doing that we do not have NCDs? We do not have diabetes, hypertension, and pandemic. Come on, we don't have time. Even if you can tell me 2 things and we'll do our assessment.
Adhere to these positive practices, like hygiene practices.
Yeah.
So if hygiene practices, if we talk about pandemic, or if it is NCD, like all these food practices,
yeah,
regularly.
Diet. Yes.
Yes, that. And then
less
regularly
stress,
checkups.
Right, checkups. Very good. Yeah. Okay.
More and more research work.
More research.
And
Ajay?
better in.
Are you saying more research?
Yeah.
Excellent. See? Okay.
Yeah, in medical sciences.
Yeah.
And
medical,
also
behavior change. Yes.
On health infrastructure.
Yeah. Okay. So these are the practices which if and many more. Okay, because I want to just give you a taste of what's going on. So whose practices? The group's practices, right? Yeah. And then we all assess ourselves. These are different levels. Okay. Level 5 is our dream. Okay, where the research is best. We are all eating healthy diet. But level 1 is we know all this, and maybe we don't even know, as Ajay is saying, we need more research, but we do not act. And second is we all act. Okay, and we all start discussing what we have, where we are. If the dream is level 5, if you're eating, for example, healthy diet, like Bilal said, like I sometimes eat healthy food and sometimes I eat junk food. So similarly, as a group, we will all have a discussion on where we are. And when it is a community, like when I was working on, for example, routine immunization, and when the community as a group were doing their self-assessment. Some people said all our children are immunized. I'm talking about routine immunization, not COVID vaccination. But then the health worker got up and she said, sorry, what about the ethnic communities? What about the Brooklyn migrant laborers who come? They do not get. And in fact, even in your community, not all child is fully vaccinated. You do not complete the schedule. And that is when the women got up and they said, because we have to take care of our babies. And then men got up and said, we will take our children for immunization. The entire burden cannot be on my wife. So they were already assessing as a community that they were at that particular level. So it wasn't about individual, okay? And so you see their assessment. And then they develop an action plan and fathers start taking children for immunization. And similarly, we develop an action plan, okay? So this is the taste of how communities can take ownership of their own development and assessment, okay? So I've already done that. Yeah. So it has its challenges and it has its good points. Challenges, we all know, is we have to go by the pace of the community. That's been the biggest challenge, and facilitation skills. And I have done it like every 6 months in the community. Okay, so last thing from me is my aha moment. So as I was walking along, okay, so this was in participatory action research. So for me, why, and I've just put this paper here, why was this moment? Because in this, communities collected data for their use. It was not for my program. And they took action based on the evidence they had collected. So for me, that was the moment of ownership in research and evaluation. Okay, I think I've spoken enough, but it was really nice that you could all join me in my journey, and together we are co-travelers. Mr. Ojha, how much time do we have? Because I'd love to have some reflections.
Yeah, 3 more minutes. 4 minutes now.
4 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So as I mentioned in the beginning, that everybody who's come here has a lot to share, and it's not all of us here who know everything. So what would you like to add to this suitcase of what we have presented, Dr. Malika and me? What have you done well? Anyone would like to share? What have you done well in participation, in evaluation, and if not in evaluation, in implementation, or as a group, you're part of some group and you've done something really, really well?
Well, I can share one experience, not exactly on evaluation, but more towards to monitoring, where we set up community monitoring processes. So this actually it is nutrition and ECD project that we were working on, where we had the mother supports group, and then mother supports groups. So they cascade programs, trainings, awareness with groups assigned, the mothers assigned to them within their village. And both mother support groups, they were also volunteers for us, plus mothers who were attached with these groups, both were involved on in monitoring process. So basically indicators were about like it was like clear-cut indicators when it's come to nutrition, where we see the progress of weight of children. These were infant groups that we were taking.
Mali, so, sorry, can I interrupt and ask one quick question?
Yes, Ritu. Yes.
What is one thing this brought? What is the value what was the value of community-led monitoring on nutrition?
Where one, like when we had this, when I had this quarterly visits with them where to review what they did. So a set of mothers, they were like mothers who were engaging with not the lead mothers or the mother support groups, but engaging with mothers. Right, they were telling, so it is visible for them to, when they were maintaining this chart of their child, her own child, it is so visible the progress. So it's they kind of it was about like whole food preparations, mixing certain nutrition items and all. So they were telling, okay, well, this was very much pretty obvious, like evidence where their food change, like all the approaches, behaviors that they change in terms of food preparation and feeding child is contributing to the weight gain of the child.
So Sandhamali,
yes.
Can we say that here they were the experts of their own experience?
Exactly. Exactly.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. And that was the like very much positive thing for us, not for us, like to the project where the sustainability ensure, because whether we are there or not, they tend to continue. Plus they share their experiences among other mothers.
Thank you so much, Sandhamali. Thanks a lot. We have like 1.5 minutes. If anyone would like to, leave on the chat, what is one learning I'm taking today with me? Because you all promised that the presenters will also learn. So please, I invite you to just one thing you would do differently. Feel free to leave it in the chat. Yeah. Okay, so please keep thinking about it, and thank you so much for your time and participation. I hand it over to Dr. Oja.
Thank you, Ritu. You managed the time very well. Thank you very much. And now, let me invite Dr. Professor Robert Chamber to give some views on the use of participatory techniques, methods, and evaluation. Let us listen from Robert now. Please unmute. You are muted. Robert, you are muted. Please unmute.
Yes, I know. I've unmuted. Is that right now? Is it working now?
Yeah, it's working. Please go ahead. Yeah,
it's working. I'm sorry about that. Thank you very much for inviting me, and congratulations to Malika and others for convening this occasion, because there's been a lot to learn from Ritu, from Malika, and from others. So thank you very much to all of you for that. The first thing is, I've often been wrong in the past. I was in charge of an evaluation program for this Special Rural Development Program in Kenya, and it was a disaster, and it was largely because of my incompetence. And I wish I had known then what I know now and have picked up now, and even that I've picked up here today. There are several things I'd like to say. The first thing is that we talk all the time about handing over to the people in the community and all the rest of it, and that the importance of facilitation, which means not dominating, not being extractive in the classical research sense, not being a researcher, but a facilitator. And I think that's all absolutely right. But at the same time, if we're facilitators, there are things that we can do and that we really must do, because if we don't do them, other people won't. And these are mainly before a process takes place. One of them is the choice of where any activities are going to take place, particularly any activities which are of a PRA type, which may be on paper or maybe on the ground. There's a thing that we call democracy of the ground. It's worth thinking about this. You may choose perhaps to try to exploit the democracy of the ground. The democracy of the ground is that if we're down on our knees and doing something with our hands on the ground, as we've seen in some of the pictures, and if a lot of people are involved in that, then there's very little eye contact. And when we have very little eye contact, it's much harder for any one person to dominate. So that's why we talk about the democracy of the ground. So what I would urge you is just consider the possibility of doing things on the ground. The second is, if you're doing things on the ground, ask yourself whether it's better to do it on paper or on, let's say, hard mud or some other surface, a cement surface, where you can use chalk. You may decide to have chalk with you, or even to have colored powders with you in reserve, so that you can use them if it seems appropriate. Because if you're using chalk, for instance, people can rub chalk out. But if we're using paper, we can't rub out the black ink. And so one of the tendencies of this is that if we do these activities straight onto paper, just watch, and you'll probably see that one person, usually a male, gets hold of the pen and is then interpreting what people are saying in writing with the pen. And once it's written with the pen, you can't change it unless you cross it out, which looks awful. So do consider the medium, and this is one of the roles of a facilitator, and that it's a role of a convener as well. Now, convene is not a word I've heard. I may have missed it, but I haven't heard anybody say convene. We talk about facilitation, yes, but not convening. But the convening of those who are going to do the evaluation and the facilitation of them and the medium or the media which are used are very important and are something within the responsibility and the power, very largely, of the person who's the evaluator, which is, for our purposes, us or you. That was the first thing I wanted to say. Convening and providing the context and the materials and the medium which are going to be used. The second thing, which you've covered and you've been raising it, and particularly in Rita when you were talking about ownership, is the whose question. There are many, many questions we can ask. Who is not present? Who is present but not speaking? Are there ways in which they can be facilitated to express themselves and to take part? Are there ways in which you can shut up the people who are dominating and talking? I mean, I don't mean shut up in any brutal sense, but in which you can enable them to listen. You can just say quite simple things. Well, let's listen and see what she's got to say. It's all part of good facilitation to ensure the participation of those who should be participating, whether they're present or if they're not present. And if they're not present, you may decide that as a convener, you should have a separate exercise later, for instance, in which you do bring them together and perhaps even don't include those who took part in the first session, or whatever way you want to do it. It's not for me to say, but to be aware of this issue, I think is important. In terms of attitudes and behavior, there's an awful lot can be said, but I think the single most important word in attitudes and behavior is listen. The next most important is shut up. To keep one's mouth shut. Some people say to suffer the silence. Sometimes if there's a silence, it's very difficult not to fill it with words in the first 10 seconds. You try and count the seconds. It's quite difficult, but it can be very important because people, particularly shy people, they need a bit of time to get their ideas together, to work out what it is that they really want to say. And usually by the time they've worked it out, somebody else has jumped in. And then the pattern of some people talking and some people not talking occurs again. So listening and keeping quiet in order to allow other people and to encourage other people to speak or to contribute in other ways can be really important. A point about matrix scoring and choosing. There's a lot of discussion which will probably never cease about whether or not you can add up the scores. My own view is that it doesn't make all that much sense. But a point that is really important to remember is that with a lot of these choices, if it's choices of vegetables to go in a home garden, for instance, it's not that there's one, and that's the one, and you plant all potatoes or whatever it is. You need an array of different vegetables, and very often that's the case. So matrix scoring, which you presented so nicely, Malika, matrix scoring is a very, very important tool for enabling people to think about what they need. But sometimes they'll need several of the different items so that they cover all the different needs that they have. One thing that I think is very important and which tends not to get discussed is follow through. It's when you've facilitated an evaluation, and of course all those whose questions, whose evaluation was it, who is going to take action on the basis of that evaluation? Does the action that needs to be taken or that could be taken, or the community would like to have taken, can that be facilitated? Is there a danger of the external evaluator, facilitator, stopping too soon? Because if you do an evaluation and there's no action, and nothing is different as a result, what is the point of it? So I would add that to attitudes and behavior, convening, facilitating. I would add follow through. And then perhaps the last thing to say is enjoy. Evaluation ought to be fun. It ought to be enjoyable. It ought to be a learning process. If you're not enjoying the evaluation, well, maybe you should stop and go and have a drink or a coffee or something and reflect on, why am I not enjoying this? Something must be wrong, because it should be fun. It should be enjoyable. It should be an exploration. It should be an adventure. And if you can manage to enter the process and facilitate the process in that spirit, all the people that you're in touch with will be touched by that. They will be influenced by your own pleasure, excitement, learning, and they too will have pleasure and be excited and learn. And the last thing of all I want to say is invent your own approaches and methods. Don't assume that there's method A, method B, method C. It's very important, as Malika has shown us, it's very important to know what these methods are as in some of their incarnations. But there are many different possibilities using the ground, particularly, many different ways of approaching evaluation, which don't even have names. And I would urge you that part of the fun, part of the enjoyment can be in being creative and devising and inventing and improvising approaches and methods on the run. So that's my last word. Enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, Robert, very much. It was very, very useful and very, very insightful, and also, so many good tips you have provided. And one of the maybe first time I heard this word of democracy of the ground. So so important the word that when you say democracy on the ground, meaning that you are providing equal opportunity to the people and creating the environment that everyone will equally take part in the process. And this sometimes, what happens in the ground, there are some people who dominate, the entire process. I remember one event when I was conducting when my group was with my group conducting focus group discussion. There was some person, very influential person, also was there, and he started dominating the group. And then it's difficult to say I don't shut up. We cannot say that person because otherwise you will not be able to conduct the focus group discussion over there. If we if we do not tackle him wisely, then I thought, then I appreciated him that oh, you are so important person, and it's good that you are giving very good tips, and I think you have given everything. Let's go for the tea. Then I brought him to the tea and leaving my group to have the focus group discussion with others. Otherwise, if we say don't speak, then you will create the problem. And if we so the situation, we have to tackle the local situation. We have to tackle the situation according to the context. You see.
Just as a matter of a little bit of fun, one of the things that I've done, which you might enjoy, is if you've got a number of focus groups, you ask them after 5 minutes to send out the person who's been talking most, and you put the big talkers together in a new focus group.
New focus group.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Very good. And today I think we heard very good things from the very beginning. That I was very much impressed with some words, like co-creation. The Ritu started with co-creation, meaning that when we design the program, it is created not only by few people, but we all. I like this word very much, co-creation or co-design of the evaluation, and taking part equally in the whole process of the evaluation. This was very well articulated by Ritu. And also the word facilitation, of course, the word facilitation also is very important, which was mentioned by all three speakers. Robert used the facilitation, Malika used the facilitation, Ritu used the facilitation, And in fact, the participants also use this word very well, because when you ask, what is the role of the evaluators, and then some way, directly or indirectly, they were indicating that the role of the evaluators would be a facilitating role. That is what that was very good also as well, and very well dealt with this the behavior, skills, and attitude of the the facilitator. The tool themselves are not will not give you good result if the facilitator does not use them properly with fun. So that's why the behavior, attitude, and skills, very good things that that they are needed in conducting the evaluation. And the Ritu lastly gave that this she came some way the discovery of what it is there. Instinct-based discovery. First, she gave some kind of discovery. Then she went for the dream, and also the plan. It's a kind of design, how to achieve the dream. So she went to the dream. Also, she indicated something like destiny. So in instinct-based approach, we go for 4 things. One thing is discovery, dream, design, and destination. So she trust-based this approach as well. And of course, Robert has given so many things. I told this before. And to me, for the participants, so many things are given today, and it's very difficult to grasp everything. But the training are not for immediate learning, but for stimulating. The training are for stimulating and motivating. Then you will be learning. When you are motivated, then you will be searching these documents, regarding maybe the peer ranking. What is peer ranking? What is more about peer ranking? So kind of into raising the enthusiasm regarding the tools and techniques. I think it has, in that way, the training was very useful to provide you the materials and also the techniques. And at the same time, what I would like to say is that the tools given by Malika ji may not be, every tool may not be useful for every evaluation. But looking at the context, sometimes some tools take little more time to get change. And so if we have the short-term project, maybe the long-term, the kind of the physical map, because you have to do 2 times or 3 times. The mapping you have to do 2 or 3 times, because first you do for baseline, and you have to do for another the time when you are doing the evaluation, maybe midterm, maybe inline. If the project is short, some of the tools may not be equally useful to see that to provide the changes in the short period. So you have to look at the situation and use the tools. With this, I would like to thank again the participants as well as the facilitators. I'll say facilitators rather than trainers. So I'd like to thank all. Thank you.
Well, congratulations and thank you to all of you. Malika, Ritu.
Thanks a lot for your being with us.
It's been very interesting and useful, I hope. Thank you so much.
You bring life to us. We are trying to promote participation in our own way, and you keep on giving that, what shall I say, from time to time you need an injection to activate. So your words keep us going, never to stop. That's what I learned from you. Every day we are learning. We are learning. We make mistakes. Better to make mistakes than not to make mistakes.
Yes.
That's the learning where it comes from.
Very
So
nice.
I think it's time up for us to wind up. We actually exceeded a few minutes. I seek your apology for that to all participants, but I'm sure you will appreciate that it's a great opportunity offered to us by Professor Chambers, being available to interact with us. And this is a group of YEEs, Young and Emerging Evaluators. That means you, as young and emerging evaluators, have such a lot to learn from gurus like Dr. Robert Chambers, Dr. I must mention, I just want to say one thing. That is, there is no end to learning. That is what Dr. Chambers always tells us. But he has never allowed me to use the word guru for him. Because once I mentioned guru is the highest respect that we can give to of our elders who are teaching us something. Then he told me, you know, at home, my children also started calling me guru, guru, guru. So thereafter, I said, it's an honored word in our language, and I still feel that you are the guru in participatory methods for us. Thank you so much, Dr. Chambers, for making yourself available. And that itself is really energy for us to go ahead. Ritu, from time to time, I keep on saying that you are the people who are carrying it forward, the young ones who are carrying it forward. I'm so happy with your presentation and joining us today. A big thank you. To the moderator, Ganapati Oja, you did a fantastic job by doing that. And of course, I would have had to talk at least 1 hour more, to be fair, by the topic that I had. So thank you for alerting me that we are really running out of time. I wouldn't like to take training in participatory methods less than 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks, if you really want to learn. But never mind, this is a taste of it. And I suppose those who are energized will be taking it to later. So thank all of you, Ganapatiji and Ritu, very much for the presentations, and all the participants for joining us. Because of you, we really share the knowledge that we have acquired over the years. Yes, and to Dr. Chambers, once again, my respected, honorable appreciation for your being with us. We feel so quite at home when you are there, when you talk about participation. Thank you so much. So, Rajasri, you did a great job. There's a lot of coordination work behind the scenes. And Chella, who is not with us today, our chairperson, was also a great strength to me to carry on with these sessions. And he did the background, but as energizing us. So though he is not with us today, he's on travel, that's why he couldn't make it. I will write a note to him that this was a very successful session today. Thanks everybody, and thank you all the participants. Please be involved and be in contact with us. Whatever we like to share, we will certainly be ready to share with you all. Thank you.
Will you shout when you're finished, okay? Hello? Let us know when you're finished.